and you simply ask them to have a quick read of the ideas that are already on the brown paper. You ask them, if you see anything here that you particularly agree with, you strongly agree with, give that idea a green dot. If you see anything here that you feel very strongly negatively about, give that idea a red dot. So they're going through with their pens, kind of having a quick read of these ideas, not looking at each and every one, and looking and putting their red and green dots on the ideas. The practitioner's job is to kind of engage. If someone puts a green dot on an idea card, simply come over and say, you know what, why did you place that dot on that card? You need to have a view, a deeper view of what's being placed on these cards. Not everyone will articulate their ideas in the same way. Not everyone will have the same reasons for placing a red dot or a green dot on a particular card. So your conversations essentially are little mini in-depth interviews to get at the heart of the matter. This process will go on over the 3 days for employees and for staff who are participating in the brown paper. For customers, there will either be an area or they might be standing around with the clipboard where the on-site expert has recruited that person to participate in the program. They come in, they simply get a questionnaire to fill out. As they fill out that questionnaire at the end of that process, you will ask, do you have a few more minutes? Do you mind participating in this brown paper? And if so, they run through the same process. Here's a red pen, green pen. They go through that exercise. Once they finish that, you're asking, do you have other ideas you might want to contribute? Is there anything here that sparks your attention? And again, the practitioner's role is to engage every participant in the brown paper to provide their ideas. One of the questions that comes up is, if you have a room full of people, let's say you have now 10 employees at the brown paper, you have 2 customers who are taking a survey, and you have 1 practitioner managing all of these people, and your on-site expert may be outside recruiting others to participate, other customers to participate. How do you manage all of this situation? Well, number one, once you get a bit comfortable, what you'll do is, people are coming into the room, you give them a very quick introduction to what we're trying to accomplish here. You run through the steps of the experience. So they're already listed on the brown paper, so you just simply point it out to them. Step 1 is this, step 2 is this, step 3 is this, and you're kind of explaining the program to them. After that, you give them the red pen, the green pen, and again, this is the group. You say, what I want you to do is have a quick read of the ideas. I want you to put a red dot on something that you feel very strongly negatively about, blue dot on something that you feel very strongly positively about. Key point, they do not have to put a dot on every single card. They only have to have a quick read. They don't have to read every single card. This is kind of at their leisure. They don't have to start at the beginning and go to the end. They can go anywhere on that brown paper and start looking at this exercise. So 8 people into the room doesn't mean they all have to crowd around step 1. They can spread out if they so desire and kind of take things as they're going along. The practitioner witnessing all of this sees that someone has placed a green dot somewhere on that brown paper, on one of those idea cards. If you happen to know that's a particularly controversial idea, you can then go over and ask the person, engage the conversation, why did you put that dot? And you kind of now moving back and forth. That person gives you that answer, great. You step back from the group, kind of looking. Someone else does something somewhere else. You jump in, have a quick conversation with that person, and so forth. So this is going on, and that practitioner basically is kind of active as the kind of host of the brown paper, moving around, having these little mini conversations as they go along. That's essentially the role of the practitioner. The other thing that you'll be doing as a practitioner is this. As you finish the brown paper exercise, or as you finish the red dot, green dot exercise, people will have certain ideas. You'll see that they will start to have little conversations amongst themselves. That is, the participants will be talking to themselves. This idea I don't like, that idea I love, I have another idea. And they may be looking for help as to how to phrase something. Some people will phrase the exact same idea in a negative way. Others will phrase it in a positive way. Your role isn't to try to get them to phrase it in any particular way. Your role is just to get them to put that idea on the idea card and then to glue stick that on the wall. Who does the glue sticking on the wall? It's great if they take that task on themselves. If you feel that that's kind of hampering them, preventing them from doing more because they don't want to do work, then you take that role yourself. So you ask them to write something down. As a matter of fact, if they are talking to you about an idea but are reluctant to actually write it down for them, and then glue that idea on the wall. So your role is to facilitate the ideas, to make sure that they actually get from the participants' heads to the brown paper. That is the role of the practitioner. The other thing that needs to be considered is the survey. So we've had a number of customers come through and take the survey. That survey has a variety of sections, as in which service do they use. It has a series of emotion questions that the customers are answering. What we're going to do is take those results, place those into an Excel spreadsheet, essentially, and that allows us to provide a profile of the emotional engagement that the customers have with the particular experience that we were looking at. So on that questionnaire, there are a series of questions, 20 questions about emotions. We're simply going to take the average answer for each of those emotions and then compare that for our profile analysis. That profile analysis does a couple of things for us. Number one, if we find, for example, on some positive emotion that the average is quite low. So let's say the emotion is happiness, and let's say that the average for that emotion is really quite low. We might know that when we're looking at our ideas, which ones do we think would help improve this particular emotion. On the converse, if we see a negative emotion that's quite high, we might then want to look at the ideas on the analysis sheets, which ones would reduce this negative emotion the most. So we're trying to compare and make the link between the emotional engagement and the ideas that we've received in the brown paper, in the assessment. So at the end of this 2 or 3 days, we now have a brown paper full of ideas on these idea cards. We need some way for the British Council to condense, collate those into a way that's useful for the British Council. We do this in a couple of ways. We've already designed what we are calling analysis sheets. So essentially each idea on the brown paper, each unique idea on the brown paper will go onto one of these sheets, which essentially is a PowerPoint slide. And you'll see an example of those here. In this slide, we have the title, we have the evidence for the idea, we have other comments that may have come from customers, and we can see how many red dots, green dots the idea had. The red dots and green dots are just indicative of how employees and customers felt about that idea. Obviously, an idea that was placed in the first hour on day 1 has much more opportunity to get lots of red or green dots than the last idea that was placed on day 3. So the red dots and green dots are indicative, they are not absolute. We just look at those to see which ones, it gives us an indication of which ideas are controversial, easy, no-brainer, wins, or absolutely not. It's just indicative.